Hey everybody, Matt the Dice Chucker here from the Literary Gamers, and I'm coming to you with something I haven't done in a while, and that is doing a book review. Now, the last time I did a book review, I did Terry Goodkind's Wizard's First Rule, and it was kind of like a redo. I used to have this old channel, and that was kind of how I started. I had just started reading fantasy, and I wanted to do a review on the series Sword of Truth, and that was because I saw a lot of book reviewers out there who were just reviewing, like, just Wizard's First Rule, and then they would abandon the series because it's something that didn't really age well as far as fantasy is concerned. I wanted to do each book. So now I'm coming to the series 4 or 5 years later, doing a redo, and kind of seeing what my opinions are. I'm going to move this closer. All right, there we go. So today we're looking at the second book in the Sword of Truth series, which is Stone of Tears. Now, this is a complicated book. And I say complicated, I don't mean that it's actually complicated to follow or understand it, but I have a hard time really kind of following the history of this book. Now, when I read Wizard's First Rule, I kind of got the feeling that the book was done. With the exception that there were a few loose ends open if the possibility came up that Goodkind would be able to write a sequel. Especially with the end with Zed in Wizard's First Rule, it was kind of left open-ended. And you kind of heard some stuff about the Stone of Tears and all that. And I knew that's where this next name of the book was in the series. So when we look at the Sword of Truth, there are these wizard rules throughout at least the original series. There were 11, with a 12th that nobody knows about, I think. Or it's 10 and the 11th nobody knows about. It's been a very long time since I've read them. But the original Wizard's Rule was as it's basically people are stupid. They can believe anything you want to tell them. The Wizard's rules are not really about magic. They're more about kind of the ideas behind the magic and all that, and trying to basically give you philosophical thoughts about the world. Stone of Tears presents the wizard's second rule, which is, I believe it's the worst thing can come out of the best intentions, or something along those lines. This is a long book, and that's another reason why I think why I would often tell people it's complicated. And even though it is a long book, I enjoy it. So in a mass market paperback, we're looking at 980 pages. Yes, 980 pages. This book, I could basically say this is it falls into the second style of fantasy trope. So when I had first read Stone and Tears, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was much better than Wizard's First Rule. He had gotten past a lot of what I called the Arthurian style of fantasy writing at that time, where it was, here's the chosen one, he's got himself a sword, and now he's got to go save the world. There's a love interest, but there's a forbidden love interest. So it was all these things kind of piling and piling and piling, trope upon trope. But I reminded a lot of people when I did the original review and the review from a few weeks ago that book was written in the early 90s. And I might go pick up my phone just to get the publication date of this book. Give me 1 second, just so we know what we're dealing with here. And you got to keep that in mind. Fantasy was interesting back at that time period. Robert Jordan had finally taken off with Wheel of Time, so that the idea of the epic fantasy was growing. You also had Terry Brooks's Shannara series, or Shannara, however you wish to pronounce it. So this idea of multi-volumed fantasy was growing. But fantasy was still kind of a derivative of itself, and I would say modern fantasy is really growing past that. Let me get the publication date on this here. Stone of Tears was published in 96. So a lot of my initial criticism of Stone of Tears is invalidated initially. This is, Richard Rowell, Richard Cypher, goes to wizard school. He has these headaches that are bothering him. Let me back up a little bit. The veil to the Underworld has been torn because Richard did not defeat Darkenrahl the way the prophecy wanted him to. He used a different method. He used the boxes of Orden to do it. And therefore it created this tear in the Underworld. And there's creatures coming out of this tear in the Underworld that can really cause problems. And so Richard, they find out that they need the Stone of Tears. So Richard and Kalyn and Zed, I'm confusing the show and the book, so I do apologize for that. I watched the show more recently than I read the book, but they do need to find this, use the Stone of Tears to heal the veil in the Underworld. And Richard Rahl discovers that he has powers, and so he keeps getting these headaches. And Zed's not with him. They split up, and Sisters of the Light, who run Wizard School down in the Old World, which is far past the map that Terry has provided in the book, I should mention, because if there's one pet peeve I have about fantasy is there a map, and did you provide everything that is on the map? When I wrote my series, I wanted to make sure that everywhere we went was put somewhere on a map so people could go, there they are, and they can travel along with the characters. But you get a little bit of an idea where it is. They come and they are able to heal his headaches, but only if they put on this collar around his neck that can kind of subdue the magic. And there's more sinister stuff going on in the background, and he has to go down to the Old World to become a wizard, and he has to be separated from Kalyn. So not only did we have forbidden love in the last time, now it's separated love. It's this whole thing with the two of them, and when they split up, you get more character building with Kalyn, which I liked because you got to see her more as a leader. You heard these stories about her in Wizard's First Rule, and you got to see a very small glimpse of what she looked like as a leader, and this person who had such and wielded such power with the nations. You finally do get to see that because now there's a war going on with this force coming from the Old World. This is the first time you get the hearings of the villain for the next few books, Emperor Jagang. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Jagang. I don't know. Go ahead and at me on how to pronounce his name. But Richard's off to school. She's leading the forces, and the travel log that happens with Richard on his way to Wizard School is interesting, much more interesting than what happens when he actually gets to Wizard School. And of course, he's not a good student. He's purposely not being a good student because he thinks if he's not a good student, they'll kick him out and he can head back to Kalyn and do what he needs to do. But then there's this whole big plot with everything going on there with Sisters of the Dark. It's a thing. So, and then Kalyn's dealing with politics back home at Eidendrill and all that. And I think, at first I enjoyed it because it had these complex narratives that I thought were complex at the time. I look back on it now and I'm like, it's fine. Like I said in the Wizard's First Rule review, if this is your first fantasy, I think this is fine. If you wanted to use Terry Goodkind's work to get you into the genre, I think this is a great opportunity for you to do that. Looking back now, Stone of Tears I think is still one of my favorites in the series. It sounds like I'm complaining about it the whole time. It is one of my favorites in the series, only because it just ends in a very satisfying way. They kind of have to, I think they fake Kalyn's death, if this is the one that I'm thinking of, so they can make sure that she's safe in some way and they can get her away from the politicking going on back home. Richard saves the day again, of course, because he's Richard, and when I review the series as a whole, you'll hear more of my thoughts about that idea. Because I it's one of the reasons I think that this series has kind of dropped for me let me just say it now. You can have more than one hero in your fantasy series. In fact, you can have more than two. It's okay. Just because he's the lead character doesn't mean he's always the one that has to figure everything out and save the day. But that's more commentary for another time. So, So back then, I gave Stone of Tears, I think, let me see, on Goodreads, did I rate it? I think I did end up rating it at 5 stars back then. Stone of Tears. I did not rate it. I think, no, yeah, here it is. I did not rate Stone of Tears. Okay. I think, when I was first reading this, I think I would have rated it 5 stars, but that's because that was some of my first fantasy. Nowadays, I think I'd give it more around 3.5, maybe even generously giving it 4 stars, because it does weave some interesting stuff. It does world build very well. I criticized it initially because Richard finds a way to get himself a cloak that turns him invisible, and I'm like, oh, we're ripping off Harry Potter. And then later on, I found out, oh, well, this was before Harry Potter. A wizard school is ripping off Harry Potter again. And I think that's where most people are going to go initially, because so many people have read that series. But being 96, this is published before Harry Potter, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, let me just check, because someone adding me. I can hear the keyboards already. So let me... Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Come on, Internet. Yeah, 1997. So this was a year before that. So once again, fantasy always kind of lines up with itself. More than anything, I think the Wizard School, I call it Wizard School. I know its name is not actually Wizard School, so same thing. I know that it tends to more, I wouldn't even use the term rip off, but borrow heavily from Wheel of Time. That the city, Tanamora is the name of the city here. I can't remember the name of the school, but Tanamora is very similar to Tar-Valon and Wheel of Time and the White Tower. So there's a lot of similarities, and that's going to happen in fantasy. So I would generously give this 4 stars. It's not the best in the series. That is yet to come, because some people are like, I hate to think Wizards First Rule was the best of the series. It's not. The best is coming. But I'm going to try to make this more of a thing. Try to do like a book review Monday. So that's it for today. Stone of Tears. Join me next week to talk about Blood of the Fold is the next one in the Sword of Truth. So I'll see you then, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Once again, my name is Matt the Dice Chucker from the Literary Gamers. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. We're trying to hit 1,000. And then you can hit the bell to be notified and hit the like button and all the things that all the other YouTubers have told you to do. Please consider doing for our channel. Where our channel died off for a little bit because we were in the process of moving. We are back and in full swing. So go ahead and do us a favor and subscribe. And we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.